All right, it's another Saturday right here on the Gracious Hope podcast. My name is Alexander Red of the Gracious Hope Bible Fellowship, and this is a media outlet of the Gracious Hope Bible Fellowship. It is our podcast, and our intention, as we always say, it is to promote and preserve the Liberian Christian heritage. We do everything here to bring out human interest, how they contribute to our society in a vibrant way, and we also tend to bring out the good in people. There are things that you don't know about people, but this is a platform that is giving the opportunity to both men and women, Liberian men and women, to talk about themselves, to talk about things that they do and things that you might not know. So today, the rise of Liberian women's power, the MacDella Cooper story, it is a story that is so intriguing for most of us or most of you. The rise of Liberian women's leadership is a cause for the struggle to gain equal opportunity and rights in politics and economic well being. Despite all of the setbacks, women's power and visibility continue to grow in our country. In a country where traditional politics and cultural norms dictate men as the predominant force in every aspect of Liberian life, women are still exceptional rather than the rule in the corridors of political power. And Mandela Cooper's story brings a refreshing reality of life's trials, faith, and the tenacity to rise above the fray. She is here to talk about politics, culture, faith, and everything within or in between. She is a political leader and leader of the movement for One Liberia, known as MOL. And as a political leader, she's also a special guest here today. We are so happy to see her. Unfortunately, my co host of this program, Reverend Suarez Dede, is not in. He has some family issues, but we'll go on with the show. But before our special guest comes on live, we will take a little break. And please share this link, okay? Share this link with your friends, and so they can be a part of our podcast today. We will be right back. Don't go away. All right, so we are back here, and we now bring on our special guest in the studio, Madam, Her Excellency Mandela Cooper. We'd like to say welcome to our podcast for today. Your microphone is off. Let me see. There you go.
Here with you today.
Good, good, good. Okay, earlier your microphone was off. Now it is on. Okay, we are so glad to see you. Now, you are a powerhouse in Liberian politics. People know you for your good deeds, your kindness, your gesture toward women, and activist and advocate. I can just name the whole list. You have a very long resume. This little girl grew up in Liberia, beset by the Civil War, came to the United States, and she got involved with education in college in New Jersey. And you have a unique story, Mandela. And I'm so glad, Your Excellency, to invite you to this program. And this is all about contemporary issues that affect the Christian life, is what we'll talk about here. And so today, we're going to take a moment to look at your life. The trials, the tribulation, and talking about your governance, your style of governance,
Right.
politics, and cultural issues, things that we believe that we can talk about. So this is more of a conversation
Mhm.
today on this podcast, and we
Yeah.
say welcome once again. So now, the angel face, or the angel of Liberian politics, as they call you. Um, let's look behind. Let's look behind the veneer of that. Who
Mhm.
is Mandela Cooper?
Well, first of all, Alex, I want to say thank you for having me on this show, and it's wonderful. And I'm sorry that Reverend, Dennis could not be here with us today. And but we're gonna. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Who is MacDella Cooper? It's like you said, it's a very complex and a very extensive, long, it's a long story. But we will try to keep it sweet and short. I know
Yes.
we only have an hour to have this conversation, and I bring you greetings from the Movement for One Liberia and all of the partisans there. We are grateful to be on your platform. Um, who is MacDella Cooper? That's the big question of the day. Well, MacDella
It
Cooper
is.
is no one without the grace, without the grace of God. So I sit here today because of the very presence of God in my life and the guidance and just just I can remember being born in Liberia, as you said, in the mid 70s, and I was born to a very young mother. I was a third child of three, I guess this young 18-year-old gal. And so being at that age, she wanted to go back to school and make something of herself so she can be able to take care of her three young babies. And she did the great deed of taking us, and I was just an infant at the time. I was born in Monrovia, but then she took me as an infant along with my two brothers, my older brothers, and took us to her grandparents, sorry, which were my great grandparents. My great grandmother and great grandfather lived in a small town called Yankin in River G County, which was then, I believe, was Maryland County. It was part of Maryland, but then when the separation happened, River G was created. And so I grew up in Yankin until the mid 80s, and then my mom went to school, got married to a wonderful man, and he brought his three children, and she brought her three children from the village, which we call interior or the countryside. And
Hmm.
so she went to the countryside and she brought us now to live with her in Monrovia to have access to education. Of course, we did have access to education there, but it was a very small village where there was no light, there was no running water. We walked to school, there was no telephones. My great grandparents got telegram. That's we had to go up the mountain to go pick up the telegram and bring it to them because that's the only way they communicated with the rest of the world. And so I moved to Monrovia in the mid 80s, lived with my mother and my stepfather, and we had a big family, and life was normal. And then eventually moved on to Gardnersville, where I attended Jimmy Jolokan School. From Jimmy Jolokan, the war, in the 90s, 1990 approach, I thought I was a big girl trying to be cool, went to Cathedral High School. I
Hmm.
enrolled in Cathedral High School because my elder siblings, my step brothers and sister, went to Cathedral High School, and I thought they were the coolest, in the world. And so I want to be a cool kid too. So I left Jimmy Joroco and went to Cathedral, and it wasn't a few months later the war started in Liberia, and of course, we all know the atrocities of the war, what happened. My father was murdered. My mother had to flee the country with the smaller babies because they had three kids together. And so my mom left the country and took, the three small children, left me and my brothers along with my step siblings with our father. But the moment she left, the rebels came to our house and changed our life forever by taking our father away. Never saw him since July of 1990, and he was pronounced dead. It was a very unfortunate situation for us and many other Liberians who saw their loved ones get killed and missing or tortured. And eventually, we found our way into the bordering countries. It was months later. My brothers and I we fled to the bordering Ivory Coast. We went to refugee camp there to seek refuge. And so, again, by His grace, I survived that war. By His grace, I ended up in a refugee camp, and I was extremely grateful to have walked out of Liberia unharmed, not raped, not abused, and I found myself in a situation. Of course, refugee camps is never easy place to be, but
Hmm.
we were lucky to be there. Even if we didn't have food and water and access to the things we needed to survive, we were just lucky to be alive. And so um, we left Ivory Coast in 1993. We migrated to the United States. We reunited with my family and went to high school, university, and started to work for corporate America in the late 90s, early 2000, and took it on from there. And this is where I am today.
Yeah, your father. Wow.
That's
Just
right.
imagine how traumatic it was for your mom and you and the other siblings
Right.
to see your father go unexpectedly. And
Right.
that trauma, how did your mom, you, and other siblings deal with that trauma?
Well, we were in a state of survival. Pain can be forgotten in the urgency of purpose. Our purpose at the time was to survive by all means necessary, do what we could to survive. And so the pain of losing our father, the pain of thinking about the atrocities and the afflictions that were being posed on us, that pain was forgotten because we had a purpose at that moment, which was survive, survive, stay alive. And one of the things, my mom was just in a mode of getting us out of Liberia into safety, getting us to the United States. And so we were thinking, I mean, it hurt us a lot not to
Mhm.
know where our father is. He was dead. He was laying in the gutter somewhere. And we were just in that survival mode. Get to the place of safety, get to the place of safety, and get to the place of safety. And that's the mode we're in. So it took us years to
Mhm.
reflect on the reality that dad was gone.
Yeah.
It took us a long time. And even today, Alexandra, I'll tell you this much. It's sometimes it's just that empty space,
Hmm.
what dad used to be. Is he's no longer there, and you don't know if he's ever coming back. But again, being a believer, you sort of that one day you will see him in heaven, and so that's the thing that hold us and keep us going.
So, how did you come to faith? How did you come to know Jesus Christ?
Well, that's a very interesting story. My great grandparents that raised me from my infancy days, which I just mentioned, they were believers. They were men and women of God. So they were part of the church in Yankin, and they taught in school. So they came. They were sort of missionary-ish. They sort of made themselves like missionary, helping the poor. When I grew up, there were about 25 plus other children living in the house who weren't really theirs, but they were just caring for kids who they could care for, whether it was family members, children, or great grandchildren, or whoever. They just took a ton of kids into their home, and they said two things to us: we will beat Jesus and the book will beat Jesus into you and the book in your head. That's all we're gonna give you. We'll give you
Wow.
Jesus and an education. That's it. Don't expect hugs. Don't expect I love you. We'll give you a meal, whatever number of meals per day, a roof over your head, and the love of God. And with that come education. So that was my early upbringing. There were no nonsense. They were disciplinarians. They were like,
Mhm.
you gotta work, you gotta do your part, you gotta be educated, and you gotta go to church and believe in God. And so that was how I grew up.
Wow. And knowing Jesus, knowing his life, his conduct, his character, how has that been applied to you personally to grow in a way that you see the world and forming your own worldview? How did it
Right.
have some impact on you?
Well, it has had a major, impact in my life. And, of course, we're not going to dive deep into the testimony of how his grace has covered me over the years. But, you know, knowing the character and the teachings of Jesus Christ, I one of the things my great grandparents give me, yes, an education, protection until the mid '80s when I came to my mom. But they installed in me the tradition of going to church on Sundays. So even when I was a young woman, living in the United States, I try to walk away from that at some point because you wanted to figure out how can you survive in this world being independent of this whole teaching of Jesus Christ. Who is this Jesus Christ? You saw every Christian, every person have that moment where they just want to know if they can figure things out on their own. And so you start, especially in the university years, when you start looking at other philosophies and you start questioning your own faith and things like that, right? You have these philosophers, these instructors that come and say, why do you believe it? And they start challenging you.
Yeah.
And then sometimes even yourself, you start trying to figure out, hey, this thing I believe in called Jesus Christ, is it real? And then you start diving deeper into answering those questions. And I'll tell you this much: I was lucky enough to have found two great men of God, Ravi Zacharias, the Christian
Yes.
apologist.
Hmm.
Love Ravi Zacharias, listen to a lot of his teaching, and then David Wilkerson, who wrote the Cross and the Switchblade.
Hmm.
Right, discovered David Wilkerson's church in New York City, and I became a member of that church. So I was under the teaching of David Wilkerson for many years. But look, there's nothing about the life of MacDella Cooper, the success, first surviving the Civil War, coming to the United States. That was a great privilege. Being a refugee in the ghettos of Newark, New Jersey, winning an academic scholarship when I was dirt poor and they didn't have $1 to my name to pay for college. I said, look, how do I go to college? And my principal told me, if you get a 2.5 GPA or higher, we will help you get all the money to go to school. I went to college for free in the United States, obtained a bachelor's degree, got a corporate job, made a lot of success in New York City, made friends in high places. I became a likable person, became very well known in my social setting, great deal of respect over the years. I could not have experienced all of those things without the mercy and the grace. Absolutely not, because there is nothing about MacDella Cooper that will be able to fudge that plan to say I'm doing it independently of my creator. And
Yeah.
so I today there is nothing in my life to success. All of everything I have is just by the grace, and I would not stop saying that. And so, um, and Evie, the idea of being a successful, corporate consultant in Manhattan, New York,
Hmm.
where we work with wolves on Wall Street. New York is a place where you go just to make money. You
Yeah.
sell your soul to make money. That's it. You just focus on making money. The whole idea of family, marriage, and thinking about your past doesn't exist. You are there to focus on one thing: is to become wealthy, have lots of money, friends in high places. But in the midst of that culture, I found myself in David Wilkerson Church every day. And in the midst of that culture, I was reminded that this life was not given to me simply because I deserve it. It was
Hmm.
grace. And so the idea of creating a foundation to give back to those who also just needed an extended hand, right? That same hand that was extended to me that saved my life, that brought me to where I am, who I was. I had all these resources, access to resources. It just gave me so much compassion for my own country. Although I
Hmm.
experienced so much pain and loss in my country, it was by that same grace that gave me the audacity to say I'm going to go back and help. The audacity to go back to a place where the only thing I could remember was pain and hurt and destruction and abuse and all of these things that no one would ever want to go face again because I had been removed so far from it. But it was great that allowed me to go back and say, how can I rescue as many young people as possible? And so I built the MacDella Cooper Foundation to rescue as many young people as possible, to feed as many as possible, and to try to educate as many as possible, even though they didn't know where that money was going to come from to obtain an education or even access to healthcare. So the MacDella Cooper Foundation focused on all of those things. Feed our people, clothe them, educate them, give them access to healthcare and housing. That was the purpose of the MacDonald Cooper Foundation. And so, in doing that over the years, serving and serving and serving and serving, I began to fall in love with this country, and I began to see the problems. It was just there, and then I began to see the solutions to those problems as well. And so, um,
Yeah, and so we'll get to those problems. We'll get to that's when the governance and politics come in. So we'll get to that. But you see, you kept mentioning grace.
right,
You know, a lot of people overlook how God is gracious and
mm,
merciful, and like you said, humbly that yes, you don't deserve, but
oh,
yet God, because of His mercy and His
right,
infinite grace, here you are, and you
right,
were able to go through the deep waters. I
right.
mean, growing up with a father gone and your mother. Now, describe your mother. Who is she? Her character. I mean, what will you describe her to be? Your mother.
My mom is a force to be reckoned with. I'm everything like my mother. The more I look at her, the more I realize I'm just a modern day version of her. She's very strong. She's a woman who has gone through a lot in her life. When my biological father, walked away, she just thought to herself, I have three kids. This man is gone to find privilege on his own. He leaving us behind. You know, the typical Liberian story now.
Mhm,
You know, when
mhm.
things get hot, it's not every man, but some men are strong enough to stay and they
Yeah.
just walk away. And so that's what my father did, my biological father. And so she found herself with three children, no one to help her. She had to humble herself and go back to her grandparents and beg them for forgiveness and ask them to take her three little ones as she go back to educate herself, get herself a nursing degree and find a job. And in the midst of doing all of that, she found this wonderful man that God just brought to her, knowing that she had this determination to do what was right. And so she didn't want to have three children that was just and be a single mom. She wanted to raise her kids in a family setting. And so my mom, she's a force. I mean, I give her so much credit, number one, for what she did. Growing up as a child, I didn't quite understand the decision she made as to take me away from her and give me to her great grandparents. And so I grew up in this household that was very tough, that was very, law and order, that was very disciplinary, that was very Jesus Bible teaching all the time. You wake up in the morning, you had to go pray before you work all day long. At first, I thought my mom didn't like me. I mean, it was one of those questions you ask yourself when you're trying to find yourself in this world. But when I understood what my mom, the sacrifice she had made to get us to who we are today, again, that empathy, that belief, that in the sense that, wow, mom, thank you, thank
Mhm.
you. When I was younger, in my youthful years, I didn't understand your reason. But now that I'm a woman, I understand what a mother had to do to make sure her children were not going to repeat this cycle, the vicious cycle, right? And so we were all able to go on to do great things. My brothers are doing amazing things. My mom is, we all gather around her. She has 9 grandkids, and she cook for us all the time. She takes good care of my brothers, especially because she say, "You woman, you gotta do the work. You go cook."
So how many brothers or siblings do you have? And
Well,
where are they now?
including my step siblings, there are 9 of us. My
No.
stepfather came into marriage with 3. My mom came into the marriage with 3, and then they had 3 together. So there's 9 of us. And my brothers, all when we first migrated from the war and came to the United States, the only options, I mean, the real options we had were to go to the military. And so all of my brothers went to a different capacity of the US military, from the Navy to the Army to the Marines. And so they're all, serving. I mean, they've served. They've served. Some of them are near retirement now. And I took the route of going university and going home, or university, corporate, and then corporate. After corporate life, I went home to serve
Mhm.
Liberia. So my brothers, they some of them are in Liberia, and some of them are in the United States.
Good, good, good. Okay, if you're just joining us, this is the Gracious Hope Live podcast. My name is Alexander Red, the host here, and our special guest, uh, Madam Her Excellency MacDella Cooper, and she is talking about her story here. We will be right back. All right, we are talking culture and faith, and please share our link with your friends so they can be a part of this live broadcast. Okay, so we're talking about family, and what is your idea of a family? I know you've seen your mother, how she kind of stood strong in the absence of your dad, who unfortunately left the world.
Right.
She stood firm, and she was the backbone
Right.
for all of you, and made sure that you found yourself getting your career education. You went to the corporate world. How do you? What is family value to you? Why, as a Liberian and also presidential candidate, may I say,
Right.
why will you tell people or those little girls who are listening to you right now
Right.
about the essence of family value and how that weaves into the Christian faith?
Right, right. Well, look, according to the Bible, and that's where we get our truth. And so, a family structure is a mom and a dad and the children, right? That's what a family is. And in our tradition and culture, we have extended family who are our aunties, our cousins, our uncles, and grandparents and great grandparents. So it goes, it's not just widening, but the core is a mother and a father and the children. And of course, growing up, with my great grandparents, beginning with my great grandparents, that was the structure we had. Of course, we had all these siblings, all these children, and it was, and one of the things I always admire was my auntie. Although I wasn't privileged, to live with my own mother when I was small, growing up, but my auntie, her cousin, the cousin of my mom, always came over with her husband and her children, and it was just this beautiful image of the dad and the mom and these children, and it took care of their children. And in every little girl's mind, that's what every little girl wants. There isn't one girl on the planet that will say, "Oh, I just want to be by myself." Oh, I want
Mhm,
no, I want no, I want no mom, I want no husband. I want no. Every girl's idea, or every man, I guess, those of us who believe in the faith, that's what we want, right? The challenger that makes that complicated, it's a whole different discussion. But that's
mhm,
family right there, because you give the children the opportunity to grow up knowing that they're created in this form, they're created in this unit, and that's what starts. That's the birth of a nation. The family is the birth of a nation because the father's contribution in the children's life, the mother's contribution in the children's life, that's what makes a great nation. And
yeah,
so, and when you see that structure and that unit is not there, you see the reflection of it outside our homes, in our communities, in our counties, and our nation at large. And so, and then of course there are a lot of reasons why you see, and I don't want to dive and go ahead of the game, but when young people have to grow up on their own without that protection in the early years, there's something that happens that shifts in their mindset. It either
mhm,
goes a stronger desire for that unit or
mhm,
absolute anti that unit. And it all depends on the belief system of the individual and how impactful and how much they understand this book of truth called the first book of our lives, the Bible. And so that's what the Bible say to us. That's the first understanding we get growing up. At least for me, that's the first understanding.
mhm,
And so, but long story short, so in my view, the family unit, the father, the mother, raising their children in a protective home environment, providing the meals, access to healthcare. Of course, the home becomes their security and education and transportation. That's everything the nation needs to build.
yeah,
So the family, that little unit, just a man, a woman, and children is a nation, the birth of
yes.
a nation.
And I agree with you. The family is the building block of society, and we
Absolutely.
all would like to see a young girl or a young man coming up to have a sense of that unit because it is the building block of society. Now,
Absolutely.
looking at our culture, you left the comfort of the United States. You came here, graduated from college, and then went to the corporate world, and then you thought to go back because of what you experienced yourself living the Civil War during that time, and then coming to America, and then being open more to opportunity, the corporate world, and you wanted to give back. How could I giving back? So you left your home of comfort or comfort home in the United States and went back. Now, when you look at the Liberian culture from the time that you went back home and all the nuances of life events that have taken place in young women's life, we'll talk about rape, we'll talk about other
Right.
challenges. How can you characterize all that is happening before you
Mhm.
and looking forward as a leader of
Mhm.
MOL?
Right.
What can you say the culture of Liberia is right now? Does it need to be transformed or changed, or is it degrading to a place where our moral fabric of our country is going down the drain?
Absolutely, Alex. You ask a very profound question, and I will start from backwards and go forward to just how you phrased it. The idea of our country and where we are right now. Our country has massively regressed over the past 5 years. No question asked. Our country has regressed starting from the civil crisis, and there was an attempt to bring this country back in the right on the right track. And from 2005, when I first went home, I saw the effort, I saw the aid, I saw the support system come in to help bring the country back. And even you heard a lot of conversation from the former administration where, again, I'm not here to preach, Madam Sirleaf, but I'm just, delivering a
Mhm.
short message about one of the conversation I had or I heard in the country that showed me that we were moving in the right direction. Knowing that the fathers are the heads of the home. um, Madam Sirleaf said something in her administration early days. She says, I would be the president that would make sure that the papa come home with that black plastic bag with something inside for the family.
Hmm.
It was her attempt, from my perspective, from my understanding, to send the fathers back to our homes. Because as you know very well, you have up to 70 to 80% of our homes, a household that's just led by women.
Mhm.
The fathers are gone because when they're the war first of all wiped out a lot of the men, including my stepfather who raised me as his own. So then my mom now was left to raise all these children on her own. That was the destruction of that fabric, right? Civil conflict. And now number two, so Madame Sirleaf, realizing that a lot of the men were killed during the Civil War, also try to make sure the few men that survived the war that were back in Liberia make sure to go home to their families. Make sure our young people are growing in a sort of community of father, mother, and a household where they were protected, they were provided for. So she said, Papa will come home with that plastic bag. And that was a great statement. It got the country excited, and people knew there was some hope coming so that the unity of that family can come back together. And that was going to bring the country back together
Mhm.
after the war. And so you look at the 12 years went by. We, did an experiment. We wanted something, the Liberian Post said they want something new. They put in this young man, and you see jobs that were once created are gone. Once again, Papa ain't got a black plastic bag to come home with because that the idea is that our men who are supposed to be the leaders in the home when they don't have the resources, they feel embarrassed in front of their children. They feel embarrassed in front of their wives. And they want to save themselves from the embarrassment and go to the entertainment shop to just drink their problems away.
Mhm.
That's what happens when our men are not at work. Because even the Bible itself says men were made to work. God told Adam, go and work the earth, and I'll get you a help meet. Right? I'm not trying to preach here, but men were
That's
made.
okay if you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Men were made to work. When men do not have access to job, they don't feel like they're them full selves. And
Mhm.
so now you look at there are no jobs, 85% unemployment rate for across the country, 5.3 million, 5.3 million people, 85% unemployment rate. No one have jobs. The women go and hustle in the garden and in a wherever they can find a fruit and vegetable to go to the market to sell it. So now you have the women become the dominant force economically, in home again. And that's not a place that women want to be, not necessarily.
Mhm.
And so then you have our men now out of frustration, not necessarily one they've inflicted on themselves, but the country, when the system's not working, the basic social services are not working, these men just they step aside. And you have women and children and young people just finding, survival ways to survive on their own. And that's where you see things are regressing massively in the country. And so, how the attempt, and even me as a leader, I see the relevance in creating jobs to put our men to work. The first thing we must do is to put our people to work, especially our men. And then also the ones who have gone in the wrong direction, rehabilitate them. And once they get off whatever they're hooked on, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's drugs, whether is life of crime, and so many people in our country are incarcerated now. The jailhouses are filled. We got to rehabilitate that demographic of people, train them, get them ready for the job market, so that all the jobs we're talking about bringing into Liberia can now we can have a workforce.
Mhm.
Because without a trained and an educated society, of course, you can talk about job creation, job creation. Investors can come and start new companies, create more jobs. If you don't have an educated and a trained, group of young men and women, or men in general and women in general, you have no one to work those jobs. Companies will pack up if they're not making profit and go to another country. And that's what we see right now. We see a complete regression of our country in every area, economically, socially. You have these rules, what is traditional rules that's harmful to the individual, human rights. Those rules are not being implemented again, because when you have chased out all of the educated people in society who can help keep rule of law, keeps make some sense. Even churches cannot even raise offering in the churches anymore. when
Mhm.
when when people pockets are empty, you want to go to church, you go hear a good word to lift your spirit and remind you of why you're on this earth to worship.
Mhm.
You feel embarrassed to go to the church house because you get $1. You rather
Mhm.
take that $1 and go eat something, or for the day, than go give it to the church. So the churches are hurting. The house of worship is hurting as well because of this regression. Because so it's a ripple effect in across our society when we leave our people without the basic resources, when we leave our men, our fathers without jobs to take care of themselves and their family. So there's a massive regression. It's not stagnation, it's a massive regression into a place that we were 30 years ago.
In terms of masses, so it is something very serious. In other words, our homeland is in peril, in a dangerous state or condition. Now, you begin, being kind to the young people. You advocate for women's rights.
Right.
You are an activist, a philanthropist, and I mean, why got involved in politics? Why the MOL? Where is the motivation coming from?
Look, wait, I'm a person who I like to find solution to the problem, and I don't think anything is impossible. I think I have a lot of faith, and coming from a very humble background, and by grace I have come to this place. And I said something to someone at one point. I said, look, I knew after the war, when I survived the brutal civil war, I survived that war, came to, when live as a refugee in Ivory Coast in West Africa, and then migrated to the United States. I knew this life didn't belong to MacDella Cooper. I knew this life was for a purpose, because if my life was not for a purpose, I wouldn't have survived. And so I made a pact with God one day. I said, look, during the war, I said, if you allow me to survive this war, if you help me survive this war, I'll dedicate my life to you. And God always holds you to those things. You sometimes
Yeah.
innocence, yes, right?
Hmm.
But God holds you to it. And so when I started making success, I remember I was reminded constantly. And that is why I was sitting in my church one day, in David Wilkerson's church. And David Wilkerson, fragile, very petite, older gentleman, he pointed right in the audience and said, you need to go home and do something to help the people in your country. There were 3,000 plus people in that church that day. But I felt that conviction. I felt that call. And I knew David Wilkerson was talking to me, or at least the Holy Spirit was talking to me through the mouth of David Wilkerson.
Hmm.
He could have been talking to anybody, saying whatever thing, but that went straight to my heart. And I knew it was over for me. I had gained a lot of success. My friends could call me at any time and say, McDowell, let's go to Europe. Let's go to this place. And my job was sending me in those direction anyway. But I knew it was time to go home to serve. And so I started in 2000, early 2003, build a foundation. And I did the back and forth thing for quite some time.
And
I
that is a Mandela Foundation,
That's the MacDella Cooper Foundation.
Cooper Foundation. Yeah.
Right. We started educating young people, feeding them, housing them, giving them access to healthcare, helping orphanages revamp themselves, making a better place for children to live, giving them support so that the children can have the support. We started working with women's group, giving them microloans, and the young people, encouraging young people, empowering them to, attend universities, give them scholarships. These are the things that really I thought, this is what God did for you. How hard can
Mhm.
it be for you to do it for somebody else? You were blessed in order that you would bless others. You are not blessed to just have all of this success for yourself. And so the reminder of helping back home, and it became more serious. My whole life was consumed by this humanitarian effort I had created. I will sit with people in high places across the world, and they will say, "What? Who are you? And what do you do?" Look, I have a foundation. I need your help. You know, And so I constantly reminded people that I was a refugee from Liberia. I was living in the United States, but Liberia was my home, and I was made to go and help my country. 20 years of my adult life was invested in helping others to have access to a better quality of life, to have access to be reminded that, look, God doesn't only love me, God loves you too. And here is, because the good we do is not just for ourselves to say, oh, bravo, MacDella Cooper, good job.
Mhm.
But for someone to say, bless you, God, to give that praise, to give that, that worship and that glory. That if you do good to someone, sometimes it's better than if you praying for them. So to say all of that, because I did not need to leave the United States to go back home to Liberia. But I was never going to be happy in this life to know that MacDella Cooper had built this level of success for herself, and then to see my country and my country men and women and the children suffering. I will be a wicked person, and I know I'm not a wicked person. And so what was the grace that was extended to me? I had to extend that grace to my country. And so in looking at all of this, the years after working in a humanitarian sector, I saw the problems. I saw that, look, the issue of lack of healthcare, issue of lack of access to education, the issue of food security, good governance, job creation. If our government can create jobs for our people, give them access to basic social services. No one's saying free, but
Mhm.
access, affordable access to housing and healthcare, and all these things. Our people can take care of themselves. They can
Mhm.
take care of their children. One of the things I encountered after the war when I went home in 2005, I saw a slew of children on the street. And this is something I've never seen in my country. Because when the mother or the father are not around, the uncles, the grandparents, someone in the family will come and say, I will take this child and I'll
Mhm.
raise this child. But now, post war, there was a Liberia where children were living on garbage piles where no one wanted to carry them because their own loads were so heavy they could not take another load. And that's when I knew we had to go in and change policies. We had to go in and bring in people that had heart for our nation to solve, not just to see the problems and identify the problems, but bring about solutions to those problems. Because bringing about solutions to those problems is the same thing as bringing a humanitarian effort. But a humanitarian is a private citizen. They
Mhm.
don't have, besides having that godly conviction to go and serve the poor, serve the widows, because that's what our faith told us to do. But beyond that, we have got to serve our nation and make sure our nation is in the right hands. Because it was the Bible that said when the godly lead, the people, they're happy. And when the wicked rule, the people perish. It's across the board. And
Mhm.
so we can be humanitarians, we can be good missionaries, we can be, but if we don't change the status of government, if we don't change governance and make sure there's accountability and people who understand rule of law, people who understand we must educate our generation, our next generation. If we don't provide access to healthcare, we are vexing the spirits of these people and they become rebellious individuals in society. I know I don't want to mix up, government and,
Mhm.
and and faith, but that's just the premise of why we do all the work we do. So it was important to leave the humanitarian space where I was only supporting a few hundred, thousands of people, to now say all of what we're doing. Imagine if we give all Liberian citizens these same privileges. We're giving access to healthcare, we're feeding people, we're educating people, we're giving them housing, and if we can do this for Liberia will be a much better place, much better place. So that even those living in the diaspora who are working and they're approaching retirement, they can have a home to come to retire. Because as long as your belly button, your neighbor string is buried in Liberia, Liberia is
Mhm.
forever your home. You want to come and be, live your last, years or decades or whatever in your home country, and you want to be buried where your neighbor string is buried.
Yes, yes, we are one. Oh, okay, so now getting to the nitty gritty of politics, Liberian politics, I would call it is nasty in many ways, especially or particularly when it comes to gender.
Right,
Now, women as a whole face challenges
right,
claiming the political ladder, and I know. Miss the former president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, has her own story to tell. I read her book, and that was a very fascinating book about her life and the struggles. Now, what has been, or what have been your challenges, your struggles, your hurdles in the political arena as a whole? What are some of the things that you were able to, by faith, overcome to become a leader of the MOI, Movement for One Liberia?
Right. Well, one of the things I try to do in my own personal life, because becoming a leader, you stand in a public space and you expose yourself to everything. And of course, there's no absolutely perfect human being on this earth. If you have people dozing their faith, sometimes you fall, you wake up and you go for repentance, you come back. So look, the idea of a perfect human being doesn't exist. But those who keep being honest about their situations, I think has a better shot. In going to become a public servant, one of the things I had to do myself is one, be on the side of truth. Be on the side of truth. And also understanding whose report will I believe about who MacDella Cooper is. I don't believe people's report about MacDella Cooper. I believe God's report about MacDella Cooper, my creator report about who MacDella Cooper is and what her purpose is in this world. Because as long as my purpose remains selfless, it is a purpose that's worth pursuing. And so I have a strong faith that guides me. I do believe in my creator and purpose for my life. And so becoming a leader is to give people a better shot in this life. What I wanted for myself is what I try to give to people. I want to see Liberians, young people in Liberia, become better than anything I ever could become. I want to see the next generation of Liberia leading this country. And so to suggest myself to say, I'm going to become the next president of the Republic of Liberia is to do just that. Build our country, build an economy, make sure our young people have a future that they can look forward to, make sure our old people relieve this world in some sort of comfort, at least enjoy their sunset years. Those of us who are in our midlife, we should work hard to serve with honesty, with transparency, to create avenues so that people don't, young people don't get on boats and go through the desert to kill themselves. We want to create a Liberia that works for our people, for Liberians, because that is the country of their citizenship. You can't build a country where people are so unhappy they have to flee to other countries. And so, suggesting myself, one, I know who I am. And so, even if my opponents try to say, this is who MacDella Cooper is, I know who MacDella Cooper is. I'm sorry. I know who I am. So,
Mhm,
that we look, because like you said, being a woman in politics, people will constantly try to put you down.
mhm,
But you cannot bring something down that you did not create. You cannot. So, I already have made peace with that. And by his grace, I stand. And he's the one that got me standing on this platform. No one put me here but the grace. And so you cannot move me. That's why I keep forging forward with my belief and my faith and my strength and the little knowledge that I've been able to acquire on this earth through, again, once again, free education because I was too poor to acquire, to pay for
mhm,
education. So they can say, look, anyone, my opponents can say whatever they want to say, but they're making noise and they should be focused on let's work and build our country, not focus on who MacDella Cooper, who they think MacDella Cooper is. And so I don't listen to what people have to say about who I am. And so women that come into the political space and are too afraid, it's because maybe they might want to go in their prayer closet. And like Jacob did, when God was about to change him into a nation called Israel, he said, I will wrestle with you. I'm not leaving until you bless me. And so when you come on this scene, you know you're going to tackle things that people don't want you to expose or tackle. You're going to have opposition on your neck like no one's business. And
mhm,
so you have to come in with a strong faith, know who you are, why you're here. So no one can easily pull a carpet from under you. Right. And it's not a child's play because being a leader, when I created the Movement for One Liberia, I have been on two political party tickets. And these political parties tried to play games with me. But they didn't realize MacDella Cooper was a strong woman and a woman who no one can play with. Before they knew it, before they knew it, MacDella Cooper was in another direction. I finished the 2017 election successfully. Of course, I didn't get the win. I became number 7, neck to neck with Mills Jones, the former governor of the central bank. And today, I'm one of the most important voices in the country. That's not a person you can easily take down. And so I would advise any woman coming to this space like Madame Sirleaf. It took Madame Sirleaf 40 years of her life.
Yes. Yep.
40 years. Unfortunately, McDella Cooper not gonna do it in 40 years, but we're gonna leapfrog to this, and do this thing by 45.
Obviously, you're still a young woman, given your tenacity to challenge the political system and to have um, equal opportunity at the table
Right,
as a whole, for not just for yourself but also other
right.
women.
That's
And
right. Young people.
obviously, only our Creator can define our destiny and who we really are, not the enemy.
That's right.
And looking at the political arena as a whole, you have been very critical. Um, you rail against nepotism,
Right,
or would I say, uh, those who are close to political leadership to be placed in strategic job positions.
right,
You believe that we should have a, um, a merit system where if you're qualified, yes, you can take that position, and you just want each Liberian to have a fair share. You
that's right.
know, equal opportunity for employment, job, salary, and yes, it is an uphill battle for women as a whole, and of course. A woman will have to stand up for herself in every way, but they look up to leaders,
Right,
leaders who can encourage or motivate them to take that step.
right.
Now, here you have your statement for your movement for One Liberia MOL. Mission is to provide democratic rights and civil liberties to every Liberian, especially the underrepresented women, youth, physically challenged, and I believe the rest is down there. I can't even see
Right. Other
it.
minorities. Right.
Okay, explain that to me. I know there's a whole lot there that I can ask a lot of questions, but
Right.
we are running out of time. So,
Right.
but explain to me in a nutshell what MOL represent. Why one movement? Is it about unity, or
Yes.
what is it about?
It is about unity. We have a country, a beautiful country, very small, 5 million people, beautiful, beautiful, 15 counties, 16 tribes. But we are one Liberian. We're one country. We cannot be divided. The future of Liberia depends on our first of all, it says in unity success is sure, right? That's part of our symbol. In unity success is sure, and it's also in our anthem. And so we cannot survive in this country if we're divided as a people. This is not a Congo man Liberia. This is not Congo, Congo man Liberia or native man Liberia. This is the Republic of Liberia. And so for me, it's the beautiful thing about celebrating who I am as a gribble woman. I let my pamato, but I also respect the Lufadians. I also respect the Nibadians. I respect the Basonians. I respect everyone in between because that's what we are as a citizen of this republic. We have every right to respect and celebrate our traditions, our tribes, but at the same time, we should understand that the next tribe has the same right as we do. And so we must protect each citizens of this land. And as a leader, I could be a Gribble woman, but I'm not there just to serve the Gribble people. I might be a woman, but I'm not there just to make benefits and to create a country just for women. I'm there to serve every citizen of this nation, even those who vote for me and those who don't. And so the Movement for One Liberia was created to start that agenda. And as you can see, we have a major problem across the country in our three branches of government. Three branches of government. The House of what, the upper and lower house,
Mhm.
right? The legislature. They have, out of 30 senators, we only have two women. We had to fight to get those women in the seat.
Hmm.
We shouldn't have to fight. Liberians for all Liberians, men, women, young people, everybody has to have a space in this country. And this is not a kumbaya sort of conversation, oh, okay, everybody own a piece. No, we must be conscious about people's human rights. And so you have the lower house of representative, the lawmakers. You have about 73, and you have only about 8 women. Why so many men and few women? And women bring a different dynamic to leadership. Women think about the family unit as a whole. The kids need education when there are decisions being made around national operating budget. The women will come and say, we need education for the children. We need hospital for our citizens. We need safe roads, not just roads the fast cars then. But we the one who driving the van with our mind, our power, and the children there, we need road safety. Yeah. And so we need women come with a different dynamics to the table. And the idea of Liberia excluding women political representation and participation today is at 9%, compared to a country like Rwanda that was in crisis at the same time we were in crisis. Rwanda has 63% female political representation and participation. Look at the disparity between those numbers. Why Rwanda and not Liberia? We have trailblazed and we have been the first of many things in Africa. Why are we so behind with 9%? And we are predominantly a Christian country. I know the Christ we serve believes in human rights, believes in equality. Jesus was an equalitarian. He was an equalitarian. Jesus wanted the rights of all people. Jesus hung out with people from different walks of life.
And women supported his ministry.
Oh, I was just about
Women.
to say
I got
that.
a lot of passages, a lot of women supported his ministry, were
Of
part of his
course.
ministry.
And
Mhm.
very strong, opinionated women as well that will oftentimes label different things, but we'll leave that discussion for another time. But so the movement for One Liberia was established to give women an equal platform to run for office. And we just for the past few years been fighting to adjust the law because women were not getting on the ballots. And when you look at the sort of chronological order of why women were not getting on the ballots, it was because political parties were not submitting women's name on the list of candidates that it was submitting to the election commission. And so
Mhm.
when we look at what was going on, women were not on the executive meeting committees of these political parties. Every political party have a structure. It's almost like a corporate
Mhm.
firm. You have a board of directors. In political parties called the executive board members, right? So they were oftentimes these parties were created by men. They were ran for men, and men they didn't feel a need to bring women into these discussions. They consider it traditionally, oh, that men talk, now women talk. But these are the political parties they're just the embryonic stage of what government looks like. As I talked about earlier, the
Mhm.
whole is a reflection of our country, of our society. The political parties is a reflection of the political life of the nation. So what happens in the political party level is what goes into government. Now, I created a movement for One Liberia because I wanted to see an executive committee that reflected what we wanted to see in government. You have to have both women and men on the executive committees. When you don't have women making decisions in the political parties, women name will never reach the paper or that list of candidates that go to the election commission. So what the movement for One Liberia was created, and we have a chairman. First of all, you have a female political leader. Then you have a chairman. You have a co-chair female. So the co-chair the responsibility of chairing this party on the board. You have a youth chair, and we don't have youth wings. We have youth chair, and the youth chair sit on the executive committee to be part of the decision making. We have a disabled wing, both men and women. So we had to change some things that we saw that most political parties were struggling to do. We are the first one that came in, and now we have a party like Unity Liberty Party that now doing the same thing, calling for 50-50 across the executive board. So you
Mhm.
see, you have to be the trailblazer, and then eventually good people will say, yes, you know what? That might be actually up to something. We should have a reflection of what we want a society to look like. Both women and men and disabled and the youth should all be at the decision-making table of every political party in the Republic of Liberia. And so now the law that says political parties must endeavor to ensure has now been changed, thank God, to recognizing that political parties shall ensure that when submitting a list of candidates to the election commission, they must have 30% of either gender. So if
Mhm.
I'm a woman, I'm leading a political party. When I submit my list of candidates to the election commission, I should have 30% of men. I cannot discriminate against men because I'm a woman. And so when you're men running a political party, you must not discriminate against women. And I will say this now, I'll get off the topic, but in 2017, my political party was the only party in the Republic of Liberia that respected that 30% quota. It's not difficult to do the right thing. It's just a will. In politics, we say political will to do the right thing. And people know what the right thing to do, but sometimes they make it seem like it's so impossible or so difficult to do. And so I
Mhm.
believe in doing the right thing to make sure the masses benefit from it. And that's what you want in a leader. You want someone who cares about the benefit of the nation at large, not just the cronies of your cronies or those who like you or who are your who are sycophants, and those who are just hail your, prostrate themselves to hail you as a king. We can't fall for that anymore. We're not in in a place of imperialism. We're
Hmm.
here to practice democracy, and democracy has been defined as a rule that is for the people, by the people, and of the people. We must respect that rule. It's not just your president and now you just care about those who you like. That's not democracy. Or you care about the tribe you come from, or you care about the people who look like you, or only men, or if you want so women. No, democracy is a rule for the people, created by the people, for the people, and of the people, and we must
Yes.
respect that.
And you, as a political leader of the Movement for One Liberia, what are some of the misconceptions about Madam Mandela Cooper that you need to correct or that you need to correct?
Well, let me talk about the things that I look. I'm a very smart woman. I have a massive international connection that can save Liberia's economy. I can call on anyone across the world. They can come to our rescue and make sure we have the things we need in terms of job creation, better healthcare system, better education system for our young people. McDell Cooper has a heart for Liberia. She loves Liberia, and that is the reason why she's been fighting for Liberia 20 years of her life. 20 years, most of my adult life, when other young women were trying to find a way for themselves, MacDella Cooper was concerned about Liberia. Liberia needs an advocate. Liberia needs someone who can go out and speak on behalf of Liberia. Liberia needs someone who, when they gave you something for the country, you bring it home and you don't see it as your personal property. And a leader, I believe in service. I want to serve my country. I don't want my country to serve me. Everything I want in this life, God has already given me. I am so privileged. It is my time, it is my duty to give back to my nation through governance, through leadership, through structuring an economy that works. And we want to bring Liberia back to a place where once again we can be proud, because we have lost that even the region. We've lost it across the world. Liberia has become the bare bottom of every joke across the world today. We have got to put McDonald Cooper in place to be the leader that Liberia needs to make Liberia proud. I mean, look at me. I'm smart. I connect with people very well. Like I said, I have relationship across the world that Liberia needs right now that's valuable. So in terms of the little misconception that people have about who McDonald Cooper is, they're just, look, I'm going to build an education system in Liberia where one person will not be left behind. Because what happens in a society when you have
Hmm.
70% adult illiteracy rate, you have people who cannot read and write for themselves. And so any chiche pole come by, oh, y'all know that my dog there. Oh, y'all know that Alexander read there. Oh, that man, he took money for the offering basket. Oh, when you leave your people, because you see, that's what previous leaders, and no offense to any previous leader, that is what we have failed to do in our country, is to educate our people, so that when someone come and bring gossip about Alexandra Reed, they will say, oh, where's the fact? Show me the fact. Where did you get that gossip from? So I don't believe in a mere sort of cheap gossip that is floating around.
Hmm.
Like the Okuba wants power. No, the misconception, that's a complete misconception. I'm not looking for power. I'm not looking for wealth. I'm not looking for money. Where wealth and money can be made is on Wall Street. And I've had access to Wall Street for years. I consulted on Wall Street for years with some of the most reputable firms. That's where you
Hmm.
get power and wealth. My country needs to be rebuilt. And I'm going to be a part of this generation that rebuild Liberia so that we can once again be a proud nation. We were the first, never colonized, the oldest independent nation on the continent of Africa. We were the mini America where everyone came, all flights came. People wanted to go anywhere in the world, they came to Liberia. Nigerians, Ghanaians, Sierra Leoneans came to Liberia for university. I want to bring a nation back to that. So whatever little misconception people have about who McDella Cooper is, they need to lay that to rest and focus on what McDella Cooper can do for Liberia to bring, once again, make this country a God-fearing nation. It says in our constitution, a
Hmm.
God-fearing nation with respect in the world again.
And how is your working relationship with other women in Liberia to advocate for some of these issues for women to be on the equal footing of opportunity in the political arena and every other sector of the economy of our country?
Well, women drive the economy today, the microeconomy, of course. It's just when it comes to big dollars, the boys then come in and say, hey, I want place here. But women are the backbones of our society. Women have been carrying the society since the war. And let's look back at history. When the war was taking place, our men had a high honor to be. There are women that were going outside to take the risk, with sometimes even baby
Hmm.
on their back to go find lay potato greens from
Yeah.
the field to cook it, to look for coal, look for anything we can find to bring it home. So to exclude women's rights is a complete disregard for what women contribution have been to our nation. And
Hmm.
then besides that, we're encouraging women. We have the Lapa Revolution, which is a conglomerate of women from across all political parties, all walks of life, educated, uneducated, Lapa women, civilized women, you know, we come together to talk about the issues affecting our lives. We come together to discuss the issue affecting our children's life, our nation, our communities, and how we can fight for women's rights and how we can get more women elected into office. In the last midterm election, I was in villages sleeping on the floors to see to it that women got their seats and they were elected into office. And so this is what we're going to continue to do. Of course, yes, I will be in a race this year by God's grace, by His grace alone. I will be in a race, but I will also continue to support other women to get into the upper house of Senate because there will be a senatorial race, and we're also going to support women in the lower house of representative because you have all seats being vacant, and so there will be a whole new group of representatives coming in to make to create laws for our country. So I am well connected with the women's movement in Liberia, and we are going to take action because number one, as an opposition leader, my mission now is to bring the opposition together because that's the only way we're going to have any level of success. Yes, we got to go in our prayer closet and pray this evil empire out of our country, because when darkness covers your nation, everything goes south. And so, in order to remove this evil empire that exists in our nation of thugs and thieves, we have to pray. And that is why we have prayer groups going in diaspora. I'm on prayer groups sometimes at 6 p.m., at midnight. We were on the prayer team with women who are praying the devil back to hell. Because right now, that's what's happening in our nation. When you have leaders and people who are in the power position ripping our daughters, they're taking their innocence away and leaving them without even any intentions for their lives. You have people sodomizing our little boys, our sons. You having our young teenage boys now. You want to have jobs in the bank. They have to become someone's lover. And those are the operation of evil itself that has covered our nation. And we must not and will not let Liberia go into the darkness. We will fight for our country. And so we are going to pray, and we are going to focus on getting the opposition bloc together. You got people like MacDella Cooper. You got Joseph Bokan. You got Alexander Cummings. You got all these people who are strong and can make things happen, and we're going to work for it.
Yes, yes. Okay, that's a whole lot that you just said, and it seems like you speak with passion, and you have a heart for our country, and you look at the degrading moral fabric of our country. It's something that is very painful to your heart and your soul, and it is something that you believe that a nation, a sovereign nation that was built or founded based on God's gracious providence,
Right?
should be a country that should depend on God,
Yeah.
His grace, and His mercy, so that our the family unit, the building block, and everything that God has given us as a country to prevail. All right. So now let us get back to you here regarding as we close here. Why is the meaning of Mackie your middle name Mackie? What does that mean?
That's a good question. When I was little, I didn't even well, I don't want to say it to sound like but I didn't even know my name was MacDella until later on. Later on in my life, everyone referred to me as Mackie or Makio, Makio, Maki Kanye,
Mackie.
Maki Kam. So it was Maki. It was Maki, Mackie. And so when I went up to university, I asked them to please put that name as part of my name. Because I could, when you apply to university, you have some flexibility there to give them the name you want
Yeah.
your diploma to be in. So Maki was officially added to my name, and I plan to keep it. But
Okay.
it's Magdella Mackie Cooper.
Mandela. What is Mandela?
It means wisdom. It means wisdom.
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 Hmm.
Right.
Wow. All right. Well, it's a mouthful. You said a whole lot here, and I got to learn a whole lot about you,
Mm.
as well as I believe other women and men who are listening right now, a global audience, they got to learn a whole lot about you. But what struck out is your passion to understand that God's grace and His
Yes.
mercy have
Yes.
been carrying you all through your challenges. And here you are still going through the challenges of everyday politics, everyday life. And I can imagine how challenging it is for you to lead, have to be a leader of a political party, and then your own personal issues and traveling. There's a whole lot.
Right.
And we all look forward to see a campaign going forward next year, because it's going to be a hectic time. Are you prepared for that?
I'm fully prepared. I'm fully prepared to do a very strong campaign. We're working
Mhm.
with a team of international, regional, and local experts to bring about to bring about the change that is desperately needed in Liberia at the moment. This is going to take a lot. It's going to take a village to make this happen. First, I mean God first, of course, but it's going to take a lot of people on the team to make this change happen. So we're ready. The movement for One Liberia is strong. It's we look, people pass it around and say, oh, but what's your constituency? Look, when God is ready to move, God moved the children of Israel out of Egypt. Was there any look? God took a man who could barely speak and led the children of Israel out of Egypt. So look, I'm not here to talk about Egypt or but I know the God I serve, and He can do great things.
Yes, and you depend on Him wholeheartedly, and
Absolutely,
that is a good thing. And you would like to encourage other women too to always keep that faith alive.
absolutely, absolutely.
Any final word?
Well, Alex, I want to thank you for having me on here today. Really wonderful conversation with you, and I look forward to being back in the near future to discuss. And then also when I've won, I would love to come back and have a discussion with you as well to still tell you exactly where we're going to take this country in the first 100 years.
And we'll keep you
100,
in prayer.
I'm sorry.
Okay. And we'll keep you in our prayers. All
Amen.
right. Thank you so much for appearing on our program today. Until then, we'd like to say thank you so much for coming. And please share this link with your friends, your relatives, and your families so that they can be a part of this program. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much.
Thank you, Alex.